To, Today, what we're going to do is we're going to look at uh, some different patterns of assessment that help us figure out what students are learning in this age of AI, which is a real challenge for us. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. If you didn't see the email, and hadn't gotten an assignment to look at and to evaluate during this session, take a moment to pull something up because our goal today is to choose one of those assignments from preferably a fall class that you're concerned that students are using AI on and that you can't tell whether or not they are learning the material. And let's figure out some ways that we can adjust that assignment so that you're better able to assess student learning. So I'm going to share my screen here with you. All right. So let's see who's here. So we're going to talk about 5 different patterns of AI resilient design assessment, but that's not all we're going to do. So before we get to that point, I'd like for us to take a moment and think about what it is we're trying to accomplish when we do assess student learning. So go forward. So the core idea, the core concern really for us is that um, a grade is an inference of student learning. They create an artifact and we assess that artifact, and based on the correctness, the quality of that artifact, we determine whether or not we think the student has learned. And so you see the little flow chart there. This is kind of the chain of inference that we've used throughout the 20th century and early 21st century. And yes, there were opportunities for students to um, improperly manufacture those artifacts, cheat, but they were few and far between, and we had gotten pretty good at recognizing those. But the problem is that with the advent of AI, they are able to do a lot of the work that they were able to do, they were required to do before. So imagine a student producing an artifact with AI that is undetectable, or you can't prove that they didn't produce it. And so, what we have to do is figure out a way to verify that the artifact came from them. And we all know that those detection tools are just imperfect. So what we need to think about is how can we produce more supervised work for those assignments that are the most significant for your student proving that they have done the learning themselves. Um, so we're going to start with an audit of your own work. And I'm going to drop into the chat a, a file. I'll also send this file out. There we go. In the follow-up email. Back in the spring, and some of you who are on this call were in that spring course and in that spring session with Dr. Goran Trajkovski. He is a assessment specialist at Western Governors University. And if you know anything about Western Governors, it is one of the largest institutions in the country. They have a lot of online programs. And it is one of the few institutions that uses not just course hours for assigning grades, but also badges or certifications um, for specific skills. So assessing skills is really important for Western governors, just like it is for us, because every single badge that a student earns, everything that they do is assessed, and then they are allowed to move forward. So Dr. Trajkovski gave us this audit handout that I've shared with you. And what it asks you to do is to go to the assignment that you have identified as being something that AI can do, and you're concerned about students not doing the work themselves, right? Um, and ask yourself these questions. So, under what conditions is the work produced? So, imagine sending, I'm an English professor. I can tell you many years I sent home um, final essay exams. They were produced unsupervised at home. There was no time pressure because writing quality was really important. But now, a student who is supposed to demonstrate original analysis and synthesis in their writing can use AI to do that. That work can be identical. So, for me, under the conditions that those take home exams, essay exams are produced, the students have no boundaries on what they can do and how they can use AI. And then I have to think about, well, if I can't do that anymore, what is the artifact actually demonstrating? So, how does that essay show me that the students have learned? And what is it that I need to know they have learned how to do? How can I then change that assignment so that I'm still able to assess the same things, but in a different manner? So having the students in a more supervised um, environment, or breaking the assignment down so I can supervise parts of it. Um, this is just where we are. And it means that we all have to change the way that we are approaching assessment. Um, a lot of us, myself absolutely included, are assigning work that we developed before AI existed. And that work is no longer determining or able to determine whether or not our students have learned. So, what we're going to do here is I want you to take about 3 minutes and look at the handout, and I'll share it on the screen in just a moment in case you weren't able to download it. Look at the handout, choose one assessment from your own class, and whether you have the actual physical assessment in front of you, or uh, you are just sort of going from memory, either one is fine. Um, and answer the questions about under what conditions, what does the artifact demonstrate about learning, and what changes in that assessment of student learning if the student uses AI. What are we losing? So the first thing we want to do before changing the assessment is figuring out what are we losing, what are we keeping, and and then we can figure out what we need to do next. Um, and then I'm going to put you in some breakout groups and ask you to share with each other, give you about 3 minutes to share what you found out with your partner, um, and just sort of talk through what you found and what your thoughts are about how to deal with that. All right, let me see if I can share this screen really quickly. So, was anyone not able to download the file that I dropped into the chat? Raise your hand, wave at me, give me a thumbs up. Okay, all right. Dr. Dansby Giles. I will share with you my screen really quickly. It's really just those three questions. Hold on, it's going to come up. There we go. So what you're doing is you're choosing an assessment. It can be an exam, it can be a writing assignment, preferably something that really matters, that is a weighty assessment that you need students to do well on so you can know that they've done their learning. And you want to think about where are the students, what are the tools they have access to, is anyone observing them? And then you want to think about when I designed this, what was that assignment actually showing me that students knew or could do? So what is the content and what are the skills that it is helping me certify? And then what has changed when students approach that assignment and use AI? So just think about that. I'm just going to randomly put you into some breakout rooms. I'll give you about 6 or 7 minutes, and then you'll come back and we'll talk. I've got a next step for us to share. And hopefully some of you have already done this, especially those of you who are either in the summer program or in the spring program. So maybe you can help your colleagues. Give me just a moment. We'll get some breakout rooms. Oh, great. I'm going to have to do counting. It's so hard for English professors. Let's see. Here we go. 11 breakout rooms. Okay. All right. So the rooms are all there. If you don't know how to access them, let me know and I'll kind of walk you through that process. Um, on the bottom of the screen, there is something that says more with three little dots, the very bottom right-hand side of the screen. And if you click on that, more, then it will give you an option of breakout rooms. And when you click on there, you should see your breakout room with your name on it. So let's see who is not somewhere. Dr. Whalen, you are in breakout room 5. See if I can make it pop up for you again.
I had a quick question, Dr. Bezzetta.
Yes.
You mentioned that there was something in the chat. I think I came in too late to see.
Yes, I will drop it in the chat again. It's just those three questions. Just a little handout with those three questions.
Okay, and then also in terms of the prompt or the assignment that we're using, we're just picking up an assignment amongst the group, or was there anything
You
distributed?
Yes, so you choose one of your assignments
Okay.
that you want to work on and take about 3 minutes and think about how you would address those questions. And then this is a think, pair, share. So you think and then you share with your partner.
Okay. All right. You said you would put it back in the chat.
Oh yeah, except that I didn't click send. There we go.
Ah.
It pops up. All right, let's see, Dr. Whalen. Let me see if I can put you in. What do we got here? I'm going to try to move you to a different room. Move to 2. Okay. Did something pop up for you, Dr. Whalen? Dr. Abraham, I am going to put you in a breakout room. Uh, you should have gotten something that just popped up on your screen. There we go.
Dr. Visitor, do you have the call? I was
Hi,
the
Dr.
only
Cope.
one. I was only one. Do you have any other person there?
Yes, she's in there now.
Okay. Would you
That's Miss
make me
You
go
should,
to the break room?
yeah, if you go down to the bottom of the screen where it says more, three buttons, I mean,
Oh,
three dots, you see that?
yeah, join break room. Yeah. Thank you.
Join break. Mhm.
Yeah.
Dr. Lee,
Yes,
looks
same
like
same situation happens to me.
you and Dr. Addison, maybe if you just unmute here, we'll just have a breakout room here. Dr. Addison, Dr. Wayland, do you guys want to unmute? Dr. McFarland left. I despise breakout rooms. Managing them. I mean, all right. Well, Dr. Lee, you and I will have a breakout room. What is the assignment that you were thinking about uh, trying to work around AI with?
Yeah, I mean, basically just writing a report,
Mm-hmm.
and the report is based on, a design, engineering design, roadway design. But the thing is, the students focused on the writing part instead of the engineering part, doing the graphics.
Yeah. Um, so they're using AI to write the report, but they don't really understand or not demonstrating understanding of the
Or
engineering.
or the design is not in the
Mm.
perfect standing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, so what have you been thinking about doing to address that? Have you tried anything yet?
Uh, Not in the last round. And the
Mhm.
next time, I guess I will have more weights on the design
Mhm.
portion of this assignment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so with that design portion, um, can any of that be done in a supervised setting? So maybe they're in a lab, um, you give them a portion of design process, and they start it in front of you. Um, something that allows you to see them doing the work, making sure they're headed in the right direction.
Hmm.
Uh, would that work for that assignment?
That's a good idea. Yes, I'm thinking about offering those kind of one lecture on that. Let the students experience how they can do the designs
Hmm.
based on the software itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I do think, although I'm an English professor, so we have completely different fields, but writing, the way we teach it, it's a process. And sometimes breaking that process down, um, and just giving them a little more supervision on certain aspects of the process, especially research, um, writing, it can address some issues. Um,
Right.
let's see, Dr. Leggett, um, you came back. It looks
No
like your partner
no
did
one came
not join.
to my room. That's right. No one joined my room. So I said, well, let me go back to the main room.
Come back here. So what is the assignment that you are thinking about working on?
Well, most of my assignments, I can probably tell if they cheat or use AI because it's tailored to them and their community. And so I had one year one guy did Google Map. He didn't even try to use his own community. So it was easy for me to send that. So one of the ones that I do in my 50 and my OSHA is strictly regulations. So there's no way to cheat with regulations. It's just factual. But for the most part, I try to give assignments where I can assess them based on their community because they're community-based questions. and they have to give one bill on the other assessment. So, and not in my online course with the HCA, it's kind of hard to do that period because it was designed by them, and I'm just generally just going in there implementing what they put together. So it's kind
of go ahead.
So it's kind of hard to even guide that regardless because they put this assessment together and they do everything. But I can generally tell because it's simple enough where these are undergraduates. But if they use the book, I have the book. So if the answer is so far-fetched, then I generally put the question to myself at AI. And that's one way I find out they're cheating. I use the same question and put it in AI, see how similar their responses are.
Yeah. Yeah, the challenge is, and I think the way you're talking about doing it about their specific community, that really is one of the 5 ways that we're going to talk about, sort of getting around the AI problem, is making it very specific to the location or the class, so that it's harder. It's not impossible, but it's harder for them to use AI. And it's interesting that you said you use Gen AI the same way you imagine students would use it, to kind of get a sense of what kind of responses are they getting, and helping you recognize them. Dr. Addison dropped in the chat. He's having some audio visual difficulties. Asking them to provide outlines of their project. Yeah, I think that's a good first step. They can also use AI to generate outlines, but getting them, breaking down the project and giving them iterative feedback is another way. So it's not just they give you the outline, but they give you the outline, you give them feedback, and then they have to either revise the outline or they have to demonstrate the changes that you have suggested. That becomes part of the grade, not just doing the next step, but doing the next step in a way that demonstrates that they've read your feedback. So how did it go? Did anyone have any brilliant ideas? Hi, Naomi. Ms. Mays, what you got?
Yeah, you can call me Naomi, it's fine. But I was talking to Dr. Kuh, and I realized like some of my assessments, like the ones I used in previous years, they were just multiple choice fill in the blank, which makes it very easy for students to delegate pretty much. Once they have the outline, they can go in and put it in very easily, even if it's timed. And then I started moving this past year to doing project-based assignments. But some of my projects were posters that they had to create on Canva. And those were extremely easy to delegate because when I got them back, I was like, oh, all these have the same pictures because they were delegating them to AI. But there's one assignment that I did that had a lot of supervision and was very hard to delegate. It was called a bien hablado. I made up this assignment. Bien hablado just means well-spoken in Spanish, and they have to record themselves applying the grammar and the vocabulary. And then it takes a long time to grade, so it's a big sacrifice. But the students, they know how to speak, so they get that speaking competency by the end.
Yes. I'm afraid that one of the things that you said is one of the new realities of AI, of the AI era. It has changed the way that we grade, and it is in some instances really just going to take us more time. Now there are ways that we can mitigate that. We can use AI to give feedback kind of early on in the process, creating bots or sending students, designing assignments that ask students to interact with AI using prompts you design. I mean, all of that is possible, but ultimately we're going to have to do more supervised generation of these artifacts, which probably isn't going to make the powers that be very happy, because that means they've got to be online where we can see them or in the classroom where we can see them. So those asynchronous online courses are the ones where you have the most difficulty with the AI usage. And, there's some ways we can talk about that, dealing with that in just a moment. But I want to share with you now, these came from Dr. Trajkovski, but they're not his per se. This is kind of what has been floating out in the teaching and learning space for the last year and a half or so, as people begin to work through how to take their current assessments and revamp them so that the evidence that students produce is stronger for certifying their learning. And all of these really predate AI. I mean, there's nothing new about them, but it's just a way of thinking about how these practices can be reframed for these conditions we're in now, those conditions that allow delegation of the thinking to AI, to Gen AI. So each of these 5 ways, I'm going to go through them each briefly, constrains delegation in a different way, with a different mechanism. So as I go through, just think about the assessment that you were just discussing. Which of these would be useful for that assessment? Let me see if I can advance my slides. Apparently not. Seems to be frozen. There we go. Okay, that's the first one. Okay, supervised generation. That's certainly the one that we all kind of have fallen back on to some extent. In writing courses, I have students do a lot of their initial writing in the classroom, where I can walk around and see them, whether they're typing it on their computer or they're handwriting it. Proctored exams, and certainly, here's the thing: when students or when individuals are certified in some field, those exams are proctored. We don't trust that people know what they say they know just because they turn in something they did at home. So this idea that we need to certify their learning really isn't unfamiliar. It's something that we do in many fields. Now we're having to think about it more specifically for lower level classes, for the classes themselves, not for the licensure exams. So one way you might do this is allow some AI assisted drafting, but get students to bring what AI assisted them with to class. So say, I know you're going to use AI. I'd prefer, though, that you print out what AI gave you and bring it to class, and let's talk about what's good and what's not good. Or turn it in with the final assignment so I can see what you actually did. The other thing to do is to actually ask students to use specific prompts. So creating prompts for students that say, here are the things that I'm thinking through, and will you, AI, Gen AI, Claude, ChatGPT, will you give me feedback to these 6 or 7 questions I have about this topic? And then they bring that feedback to class, and in class they start drafting. So there are a lot of different ways that you can acknowledge that they're going to use AI, but have them do a lot of the basic generation in the class itself. This, however, is the one that, as Naomi pointed out, takes the most time. You've got to be in there. You've got to then look at the assignments, listen to what they're saying. But for a capstone course, if you're teaching, I teach a graduate research writing course. So I used to not have them write the final exam because it's a research writing course. But now I have them come in and I give them a few a few excerpts from essays that we've read during the semester, and I ask them to do certain things, to summarize, to synthesize, to write a few paragraphs, so I can see they can do those basic things. Dr. Ibrahim, did you have a question?
No, I'm just write that in the chat, but I just wanna one of the things that I like it when you say make the student do their own best in answering the question. Like for example, the example that I added in the chat for the student are dealing with balancing equations. It's better to ask the student to write step by step better than to ask them just add the answer for the balancing. So by this way you force the student, I'm not the word force, but asking the student to do every single step by themselves so they can be able to understand the way that they can solve the balancing.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And so in math, you might have them say, I'm not grading you on correctness. You might get it wrong. You're being graded then on whether you've completed the steps and showed them to me. So, they can get the right answer. That's not what we want. Yeah, that's a terrific point. Um, One thing that I sometimes ask my students to do when they're drafting is to use an audio recording either on their phone or on the computer and record as though they are speaking aloud the paragraph they're about to write, and then drop that into AI and say, format this, make minimal changes, and then they bring it to me and I say, look, you wrote this. It's so much easier for our students to talk through their ideas initially than it is to, I mean, the terror of a blank screen that you've now got to fill up with text, right? They feel it even more. So there are ways that you can say, hey, AI can be useful, but let's make sure we don't lose your voice as your ability to learn those steps that you need in math or chemistry. Um, Another thing is time constrained tasks. So genuine time pressure. Now, obviously, not every student is going to be able to work at the same pace. So I'm not saying give them a massive amount of work to do and stress them out and all of that, but an authentic way to assess whether students can do certain things, especially those skill-based things, is to give them a few and give them some time to do it in class. And that way, or even online, and that way they don't see. Naomi, when you talk about teaching students to speak Spanish, I've been trying to learn Spanish for about 4 years now, and I'm not very good. And one thing I'm not is fluent, but you could probably hear me speak, right? If I spoke in my broken Spanish and assess my level of fluency if you said in the next 2 minutes, tell me this thing, or in the next 15 minutes, you need to solve this equation. So, you're giving them whatever amount of time you think it takes. It doesn't necessarily mean, again, that they're going to get it 100% right, but you will be able to look at their progress if they are given a specific amount of time, mostly for midterms, mostly for those things that are important in that way. Okay, so I don't want to I'm spending way too much time on each one. All right. Iterative feedback loops. This is probably the one that I'm seeing people implement the most because while it does increase your grading volume, it also gives you a lot more what we're calling evidence. You are certain that they're producing those artifacts because you give them feedback as they go along. One colleague at another university said the other day in a session I was in that what he does with his students is he gives them feedback, and then he asks them to tell him before they submit the revised version or the next step. Here's my next step, here's my revision, and here's what I did in my own words, um, to to apply your feedback. So the goal there is not only giving the feedback, but asking them and grading them on whether or not they can articulate how they applied that feedback, what they learned. Um, I think Dr. Lee was and I were talking about before we came back from the breakout rooms, this idea of uh, kind of breaking down the larger projects into smaller bits. And we do that more for freshmen and sophomores. We do it less for juniors and seniors, and almost not at all for our graduate students. We we tell them what the parts are, and then at the end of the semester, they have to create this big project. So, part of the assessment assurance about the validity of the evidence really is breaking it down so that we can see their work as they're going along. Oral checks, and this is what Naomi was talking about, a brief structured oral check verifying the reasoning behind their work. So the student turns in a paper, but you ask them, come to my office or break up a class period into 5-minute blocks and say, okay, you got 5 minutes to explain to me what your paper is about, how you researched it. You may give them the questions in advance, but they're not reading from notes. They're telling you from their own experience what they did. And you ask them follow-up questions. They can't prescribe that. They can't put that into the AI tool and come back and have it. If they could memorize it, then that they probably could do the work to begin with. So just a 5-minute oral check. It does take maybe a whole class period. But if a paper is an important part of a student's overall grade and one of the ways that you assess their learning, then giving up a class period to give them 3 to 5 minutes to explain to you what they did in their research will help you pinpoint not only the students who are using AI, but the ones who still need your help on various segments of that process. The only thing that I see a lot when people apply this is they you really need to make it clear to the students beforehand, maybe even early in the semester, have a low stakes assignment where they do something similar to this so they understand you are seriously expecting them to know the answers. Did someone have a question or a comment? Dr. Flowers? No? Okay.
No, I'm going to just view the recording because I was just able to log in. So
Okay.
there are some pieces that I'm missing. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And then the last one is artifact separation. So be clear in all of your assignments, where is it okay to use AI as a thought partner? And you have to model that for your students. You can't just say, yeah, you can use AI for some things. Do it in class, do it on a screen in class and say, here is the appropriate way for you to interact with AI, but here are the things you can't trust about it. Going back to the conversation with Dr. Lee, he said that problem his students are having is that they don't know how to use the design software, and they've become kind of dependent on AI to do the writing part for them, and so they're not really able to use AI in using the design software. So he recognizes that part is going to have to be an in-person part, but they may use AI to help them with polishing their writing some. Making sure that students know what is allowed and what isn't from day one. demonstrating for them what is ethical and appropriate use in your field and in your classroom is very important. So you might encourage it for brainstorming, for skill building. If you're in a course that requires a lot of mathematics or analysis, then it can create sample problems for them. It can give them feedback on those sample problems. Those are the assessments, and those are the parts of the assessments that are more formative. So you're not grading them, you're not on correctness, you're giving them credit for having completed those assignments. So these are the 5 patterns, just as a summary. How much time it costs you, how reliable the evidence is, whether it's resilience. AI resilience is the term that's kind of being used right now. How resilient is the assignment to having students delegate that work to AI? And what is this approach best for? But the truth is, no one course is going to use just one approach. You're going to have to, in part, let go of some things. Things are going to have to be formative that used to be graded. And you're going to have to invest more time in some of the higher stakes assignments in terms of grading and interacting with the students, which is really hard if you've got a large class of 35 or 40 students and you've got 3 or 4 of those classes. All right. Do you have questions about these? Are you already doing all of these things already?
I have a question.
Yes, Dr. Otieno.
Initially, like when you have online class, you have 8 modules that you don't know. So, but with these revisions, the way I'm seeing it, we might have to reduce these modules because for every week they have to do something because they're online. So we're looking maybe towards maybe 6 or 5 modules so that we can have time to take these revisions and for the logs and so on, so that we can be able to implement this redesigned assignment properly.
Yes, and there's some real tension there. What Dr. Otieno was saying was, you know, the amount of content you can cover may be reduced if you're spending more time breaking these assignments down. And different courses have different sort of general disciplinary expectations for content. So, and Naomi, you're just in front of me, but if you're in Spanish 1 and Spanish 2, you're expected by Spanish 3 to be able to do certain things. And that really needs to be the focus, not the textbook per se, but what do my students, when they leave this course, to go to the next course or to go to the licensure exam or to go to graduate school? What do they need to be able to do? And designing around that may allow you a little bit of flexibility in terms of how many units you have, how much you cover. But there is some real tension there because we want to give them as much information as possible. We want to make sure they have as many opportunities as possible to practice. But if the practice they're getting in their assignments is all generated by AI, then they're not actually learning. So the trade-off is, yes, you have fewer assignments, but you're slowing down to make sure that they are doing the work in those assignments. Yeah, that's a great point, Dr. Otieno. Other comments? Okay, let's just take a moment. I don't want to, we're not going to do a breakout here, but think about the assessment that you asked the 3 questions on. Which of these patterns might work for you in redesigning this assessment? And you can drop it in the chat, you can raise your hand, you can just unmute. What are you thinking about? I'm gonna start calling on people. Let's see. Yes, Naomi, what have you got?
I think I'm going to use iterative and also time constraint and supervised. So I'm going to use a combination. For my in-person classes, obviously, I can do more in-person activities in class. Like I can move our discussions to in-class discussions that will make students where they have to engage with the material. But for my online classes, using more iterative processes where while we were talking, I was making I'm doing a reading and writing comprehension quiz for Spanish. And I'm going to create a passage, a little reading passage with questions, and we're going to do it step by step. So, first step might be, and I might mix up the steps so they don't know what to expect. The first step might be they need to highlight all the pertinent vocabulary and define it and submit that. And then we're going to go through and highlight the grammar and identify the perspective. Who's speaking? Is it first person, second person? Then we'll go through and they will look at the question words and translate all the question words so they can remember what those question words are. And then finally, we'll answer those questions to that little comprehension passage. And the comprehension is so that I can have a way for me to demonstrate that the students know the content, because the tests are going to be proctored, of course, but it's tricky if you don't have another system built in to make sure they learn the content. Because the tests are proctored and some stuff you can't get around with online classes, but I think I'm going to try those. And the video assignments that I've been doing have been working really, really well for my students. So they all get on there and do them, and nobody's had any issues. And it really demonstrates their proficiency. And a lot of the students have said it helps them grow so much in their speaking.
Yeah, I told you that I've been trying to learn Spanish, and I've been trying to figure out how to get in your class because all your students are doing. I mean, Naomi has some first semester, first time Spanish learners who are actually speaking. So it's really impressive. Yeah. So maybe I'll make progress and I can come to your class. So anyone else? Okay, I will. Anyone else? Dr. Allen, you were in the spring session. What are you doing? What are you planning to do with your assessments?
So when I joined in, I thought about one particular assignment that I actually implemented over the summer, and this is for a course, basic course on professionalism and ethics and communication. And so many of the students that I have in that course are first-time seniors. First-time freshmen. So they're coming straight from high school. So the module was about AI integrity. So I gave them some information about what AI generation or AI generative assignments look like, what it is, some of the biases that can be presented, and just simply how some of the information is not accurate, right? And so that they are using it with the belief that it is accurate, right? So the assignment was broken into three different parts. The first part was I asked the students to define professionalism. Just what comes to your mind? Like what is your definition? I also gave them permission to not be perfect, not have a perfect definition, not be correct, just to write what they thought, what their definition of it is. So that was the first part. They only received points for the assignment if they completed that assignment and they did not use AI to do that part. Now, having said that, some of the students still did. And so we dealt with that. I dealt with that issue too, because in the assignment rubric, if it was any percentage of AI, they would not get any credit for it. So I had some students that did not get credit. So the second part of the assignment was to ask AI to critique their definition of professionalism. And so I wanted them to get the generated feedback because I want them to start to think about how they are thinking, right? Like, how are they thinking about what they're doing? And to have some sort of an awareness through self-questioning and reflection. And so they did do that. So then with that, we did a comparison and a contrast to like what was similar, what was different, and how could you have improved, what areas could you have improved in? So it forced the student to then look at their own mistakes, right? And they were able to see those and they had to document those. And so they looked at grammar, spelling, content. And then the third part of the assignment was to look at their definition and the feedback that they got, and to come up with a definition of their own. And then to how would that be, what would that look like in terms behavioral examples in terms of the discipline that they are seeking to, the careers that they are seeking to enter, because it was very generic and it wasn't discipline specific, the information that they got. So, and then we addressed speaking in their own voice and what that looks like in terms of, having because AI generated information is very technical and there's certain language that's being used that you can just kind of tell. So just having them to experience a certain awareness of all of those things. And I think that was a three. It was that for that particular class because I thought it was basic, but it would also give them kind of a platform for how they could view their work and the work of AI.
Yeah, that is terrific. So you've obviously put a lot of time and thought into it. And this is kind of where we are thinking about helping our students think about their own learning. I think that conversation that you had with them, that you've set up to have with them early in the semester, talking about what is allowed, what isn't, about having their own voice, and it's not that we don't give our students credit. It's just that we're all kind of on this treadmill of like trying to get the students, get the assignments out, get the assignments back, grade. And I think we all forget, I certainly do, that they actually, most of them want to learn. They are here in our classes because they want to be good at something so they can leave here and have a successful life. And so helping them see the connection between learning in your class and their ability to move on to the next level or to have what they want. Sometimes you have to say AI can prevent you from getting where you want if you lean on it too heavily. And so that kind of conversation that you were talking about, getting them to think about their own thinking, is just really, really helpful. We have about 5 minutes left. Wanted to see if anyone else wanted to share what your plans are. I think we learn more from each other than searching the internet and hoping we find something. Dr. Ko, yes, what do you have to share?
Yes, ma'am. The other day I checked the enrollment status of public colleges in Mississippi, Alcorn, Delta State, and there are 4 universities enrollment below 3,000. And we have enrollment cliff. So in that case, the faculties at JSU should have open-minded on AI application and make students exciting about new teaching tools is open mind. The problem is that we have certain kind of apprehension. AI still tend to copy and paste from AI output. Then some people said AI-based learning is dead, college education is dead. We must get out of from the mindset. Today, we learned how to detect AI use, basically asking more constant checkup with the student output. But that is the JSA faculty's mission to make students happy about the JSU curriculum, I think, in the sense So you should have open mind on how to use AI in a more effective way. That's what I like to say today.
Thank you, Dr. Ko. That's a lot to unpack. Yes, we do have an enrollment cliff, and we do want to make sure our students are engaged and enthusiastic about learning. And I think that what Dr. Allen was sharing is kind of one of the key approaches to dealing with AI and those other things, helping students understand that what you're doing in your class is for them. um, we could go out there and do something else. I see all the math and science people on here. They could go be scientists somewhere else and be engineers and do all those things. But instead, they're here to help these students have an opportunity at a life that they want. And so, we just have to remember that our students are adults, and hope that once they get adjusted to college. I know I see Dr. Williams on here with her freshmen. Those first semester freshmen, they are still figuring it out, but by the time they're seniors and juniors, they understand that they need to come to class, they need to do the work, and just helping them understand that in the age of AI is a real challenge. But I appreciate you all taking the time to have this conversation. One of the things I wanted to share with you, I will send it in the follow-up email. If you have an assignment that you're working on and you want to sit down and just kind of walk through ways to revise that specific assignment, I have some time set aside this summer. And you can just get a half-hour appointment. I'll send you the link to make the appointment. And we'll just look at that assignment and see, you can tell me what are students doing with AI with that assignment, and we'll try to come up with some ways to experiment, because that's what we're doing. We brought in some experts this spring, AI experts in teaching and learning, but the truth is we're all still learning how to change our approach. And most of us, except for you education folks, I think I saw Dr. Oparinati on here earlier, most of us were not actually trained as educators. We were trained in our content areas. So there's also that we're trying to learn how to be better teachers at a time when the teaching that we spent the last decade or two, or in my case, 3 or more, learning how to do has changed drastically. And it's okay not to have all the answers. Help each other. I'll be happy to share what I know. If you have someone in your department who seems to have it figured out, ask them to share with everyone. So I hope that if you need anything, you'll reach out. I very much am looking forward to working with you guys this summer. We will continue this work in the fall. And if you have something that works really well, let me know so you can share it with your colleagues. Thank you for joining me on this hot Wednesday in June. The recording will be out for those of you who came in late, and hope to see you soon.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.